Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for prayers from the Reverend Tim Mitheron.
Let's pray together. Dear God, you are the giver of all good things. We thank you for the gift of life and health and for all other blessings that you have given to us. We thank you, God, that you call people into positions of power and influence, and give you thanks for all members of this council, whether re-elected or newly elected. Father God, may these coming years be marked by a generosity of spirit in discussion, a unity of purpose, and wisdom in decision-making. We pray for each of us that you would give us the grace so to use the power and influence that you have entrusted to us for the good of others and for the benefit of the communities which we are proud to serve. Today we want to thank you and praise you, God, for Carol, our Mayor. We thank you for her, for all the gifts and talents that she has brought to this role over this past year. We thank you for her tireless and dedicated service of you and of our communities. Thank you too for the fun, laughter and integrity with which she has performed her duties. We thank you too for John, our new Mayor. We pray for him as he takes up this office, that you would give him all the wisdom and strength that he needs for this role. Please provide him with every good gift that he will need, so that he can be a blessing to this borough and to all who live in our many and various communities. So bless this council, I pray, that all of their conversations, all of their deliberations and decisions would be full of your wisdom. Bless each councillor with your guidance, courage and strength as they seek to play their part in tonight's meeting. Finally, dear God, grant us all the humility to seek your will and your ways in all that we do and say, now and always. So may all glory be to you, loving God, now and always, through Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Would you please remain standing as we've heard this week of the death of Betty Thorndike, who was a councillor in this council for many, many years and served as mayor from 1978 to 1979. And I think a minute's silence, please, would be appropriate. Thank you. May I have the apologies, please, for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one apology, Councillor Milani.
Thank you. Are there any more? Noted, no. Any declarations of interest, please, in tonight's business? No, thank you. The election results. Councillor Ray Puddifoot, please. Election results.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to formally move the recommendation that the local election results, the formation of political groups and the political balance of the council be noted. There will be two political groups on the council, the Conservatives with 44 seats and Labour with 21 seats. I will lead the Conservative group, and Councillor Peter Curling, who I'd like to congratulate on his re-election as group leader, will lead the Labour group. I move.
that seconded? Councillor Simmons.
Madam Mayor, it's my pleasure to formally second and reserve my right.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, we come to item 4, which is my thanks for this past year. And here I am at the end of my year as Mayor, and I can hardly believe how quickly it's flown by. It's been an amazing honour to serve as the Mayor of Hillingdon and a great privilege to fulfil the role of first citizen of the borough. Joined by my husband Andrew as my consort, I have attended over 550 events across the borough, visiting some great organisations and meeting some amazing people, and have also joined a number of London mayors for their charity events around London. As I have mentioned before, over the year, all the events are very different. We've opened a funeral parlour, an opticians, shops and restaurants, also unveiled a massive 5.5 metre statue of the iconic HMV dog Nipper at the newly rebuilt vinyl site in Hayes. We had the real privilege of opening the fantastic new visitor centre at the Bunker and the lovely Dowding Park, presented Freedom of the Borough and entertained veterans who had been awarded the Legion d'Honour. We've also visited many schools and had a number of groups, residents, veterans and children visiting the Mayor's Parlour, where I've given a short talk on the history of the Mayoralty and the Borough, and taking the children up to the Council Chamber by the Mayor's special, or as I told them, secret staircase, where we had a question time, and this was a great success with them all. My thanks must go to so many people who have supported me through this year, particularly my dear husband Andrew, also the Mayor's Parlour staff, Sue and Joe, who've organised my calendar and ensured that I had all the information I needed. Also, of course, to the chauffeurs, Chris and Colin, who always managed to get us to the engagements on time, despite some very difficult instructions sometimes, and some very bad traffic. Thank you too to the wonderful catering staff for their great meals and buffet. And my special thanks go to Lloyd White, Head of Democratic Services, for his invaluable guidance. Thank you to everyone who has supported and helped to raise funds for my charities. I'm not sure of the final figure yet, but I'm told it should be in excess of £45,000. But above all, I must give thanks to my dear Lord God for giving Andrew and I the constant guidance, strength and confidence to do this amazing work which he has led us to do. Being the Mayor has been a wonderful, interesting and fulfilling time, and a real highlight in my life. One I will always cherish. Thank you all for having given me the privilege. Going on, we now come to the nominations for the new Mayor. And Councillor Bianco.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. And as I say that for almost the last time, may I start by thanking you for performing your duties as Mayor over the last year to the full and for representing Hillingdon so well. Additionally, can I thank you for supporting as one of your charities, the first Northwood Scout Group, which of course is in my ward. I sincerely hope that you and Andrew, who I have had the privilege to meet on many occasions over the last year, raising flags, as well as other events such as the opening of the Bunker, for example, I hope that both you and he enjoy a well-earned rest. Madam Mayor, I rise tonight, however, to propose Councillor John Morgan for the position of Mayor of Hillingdon for the year 2018-2019. I have known John now for a number of years. I first came to know him when he was chairman of the Northwood Hills Residents Association, but for the last 8 years he has been my fellow ward councillor in Northwood Hills. However, in preparing these words for tonight, I thought it wise to undertake a little research, and during the course of this information gathering exercise, I found out a thing or two about John that had previously passed me by. John wasn't born in this borough. Indeed, he was born in Hertfordshire in the Lee Valley, close to the training ground of one of his beloved football teams, Tottenham Hotspur, and then went on to spend much of his formative years either there or in Royston, where, coincidentally, I know that you and Andrew lived for a while. He started work straight from school, following in his father's footsteps in the city, first for Greenwell's stockbrokers, where he met his future wife Fiona, and subsequently moved, amongst other places, to Barings Bank. I understand he was there whilst a certain Nick Leeson was also there, but I'm told he had nothing to do with him. Later he moved on to IT issues based in the city, but travelled extensively through Europe and the US. Now, Fiona and John married in 1984 in St Lawrence Church, Eastcote. And it is entirely due, therefore, to Fiona that John came to live in Northwood Hills in 1992 to move nearer, as any good husband would wish, to his mother-in-law. Their daughter Ellie was born in 2000, and it is shortly after this that John's penchant for dressing up, particularly in red costumes, became apparent. Now, this predilection persists to the present day, mainly manifesting itself in late November and December, and so clearly the red mayoral robes were made for John. John has also been seen dressed in leather, not red this time, but black, and usually only when in the company of his beloved Triumph motorcycle. Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, joking aside, John Morgan is a stalwart of the community he serves. He is well known and well liked around Northwood Hills. He is the governor of Copeford School and a trustee of the Fastenage Trust. I am sure he will serve the London Borough of Hillingdon with distinction over the coming year, as he has done over the last year as Deputy Mayor. Madam Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor John Morgan as Mayor for the year 2018-2019.
Is that seconded? Duncan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to associate myself with the comments made by Councillor Bianco on the year that you've had as Mayor of this borough. You've been a fine ambassador for this borough, and you've always presided over meetings in this chamber with great fairness. And as Councillor Bianco says, I'm extremely grateful for the support that you've provided for people throughout the borough, but also in the ward I represent with your work with the First Northwood Scouts. But as with Councillor Bianco, I'm here to second my ward colleague, Councillor John Morgan, for Mayor. And Councillor Bianco gave a pretty thorough resume of John and his life there, so I'm not going to repeat all of that, but there's one or two things that were missed out. Firstly, John has done a huge amount of charity work, which is obviously a very important thing for any mayor to have a good understanding of. He served as the trustee for the charity Action for Pulmonary Fibrosis, which is a very devastating lung disease which kills around about 5,000 people a year in this country. Sadly, Keith Chegwin and the stuntman Evel Knievel passed away with that disease, among others. John doesn't shout about that. It's a sign of what the sort of person John is, that you wouldn't necessarily know he'd done all that charitable work. He does it in a very quiet, understated way, but he does it to great effect, and that's to his great honour there. John, a slightly more light-hearted note, has served with me on the planning committee in the north for the last 4 years and has driven me home on many, many occasions, as I often come to the council chamber straight from work without a car. And John's actually got so into driving around that he then took up a job as a car deliverer, driving around sports cars, I believe, to be delivered to their owners. So I think it's quite a good thing that John will now have someone else to drive him around for the next year at least, so he's not constantly at the steering wheel. As Councillor Bianco mentioned, John is very into football. As someone who only supports one League Two team, I'm slightly envious that he supports two Premiership teams, but I'll let him off for that. As Councillor Bianco said, John is a great family man, and it's great to see Fiona and Ellie here this evening. He's a man of great dignity, a real gentleman, a modest man who's achieved a great deal and will achieve a huge amount, I believe, as the Mayor of this borough in the next year. And I have great pleasure in seconding him.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Are there any nominations? Any more? No? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. I now declare Councillor John Morgan as the new Mayor for 2018-19. And we will now adjourn for the robing. When you'll see.
Mr. Mayor, if I could first ask you to sign and read the Declaration of Acceptance of Office. Sign there. If you read from there to ability.
I, John Robert Morgan, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the London Borough of Hillingdon, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to announce that concludes the election of John Robert Morgan as Mayor of the London Borough of Hillingdon for the municipal year 2018-2019.
Thank you very much for that. My first appointment will be to appoint Councillor David Yarrow as my Deputy Mayor for the municipal year. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm more than happy to mothball my motorbike, abandon my wife's football addiction, drink a little less possibly for the coming 12 months, but I'm not going to give up listening to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Councillor Bianco, I'm surprised you didn't get that little piece of info. Thank you very much also to Councillors Bianco and Flynn. I thought you were going to keep the leathers a little bit of a secret, but now our secret's out. What can we say? I would like to thank all the councillors for giving me this wonderful opportunity to represent the borough during the next year. I'm very proud to live in Hillingdon and be part of this council, and will try my very best to fulfil the role to the best of my ability and live up to the example of all the exceptional past mayors. To all the past mayors, on behalf of myself, Fiona and Pauline, thank you for your example and advice, which are both much appreciated. I do feel more than a bit daunted at following in your footsteps. To Carol and Andrew in particular, for putting up with me as your deputy for the last year, and for your friendship and help. Thank you. I hope you can now have a well-deserved rest and hopefully a few holidays. You're both very hard act to follow. I would also like to thank Fiona, my wife and Mayoress, and escort Pauline for agreeing to serve with me and for their help during the last year. Also my daughter Ellie for being my inspiration. And of course, a special big thank you to Councillor Bianco for being kind enough to lend me his wife and to not mind her being described as my escort. I have learnt from my time as Deputy Mayor how many inspirational residents Hillingdon has in so many varied areas, and how many different activities the council help to support, from adult learning to music and drama, green spaces and libraries. We are very much looking forward to experiencing many more this year. I have selected 3 charities to support during my mayoral year. They are all to support in various ways the young people of the borough, our future. The first is the Peter Pan and Wendy Children's Ward at Hillingdon Hospital. They would like funds to further develop their new garden leading from the wards. The garden offers the sick children and their families a real refuge, a place of calm, peace and fun in what is inevitably a difficult time in their lives. My second charity is FAB, P-H-A-B. It's a national charity with local units. PHAB stands for Physically Handicapped Able-Bodied and brings together handicapped young people with able-bodied youngsters who act as their carers, often on a residential basis. Sorry, I'll have to go to the dentist soon. I was lucky enough to experience a few hours at FAB camp last month. Everyone interacted wonderfully well together, and it not only helps the carers of the disabled children to have a well-deserved rest, but develops the caring abilities and able-bodied. Most of all, everyone who takes part has a lot of fun. My third charity is Grangewood School, a special needs school that is part of the Eden Academy. I have chosen Grangewood partly as a tribute to a dear friend, Robert Symes, who did so much for the local community in Northwood Hills and who sadly passed away a few years ago. Robert and his wife, Erica's daughter, Katie, attended Grangewood and gained so much from her time there. Grangewood would like to raise funds raised for IT equipment, as earlier the children learn to use the equipment, the better able they are to continue to use it when they are adults. I hope you will help me to raise as much money as possible for these three excellent causes. To conclude, thank you again so much for this opportunity. We are very much looking forward to the coming year. Thank you. Okay, yep. Oh. Councillor Puddifoot, a vote of thanks to the outgoing Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's both an honour and a privilege to formally move a vote of thanks to Councillor Carol Melvin for her service to this borough and its residents as the Worshipful Mayor of Hillingdon. Carol has worked tirelessly, ably assisted by her consort, Andrew Melvin, in her office as first citizen of the borough, attending 550 events both within and outside of the borough. I have on a number of occasions attended official events at which the Mayor and her consort were present, and have seen and heard for myself from many of the residents attending of the pleasure that they receive from the attendance of the Mayor and her consort. During her mayoral year, Carol championed the cause of three charities: the Linda Jackson Macmillan Centre at Mount Vernon Cancer Centre, the Halo Foundation, and the First Northwood Scout Group. To date, she has managed to raise over $45,000 to be shared between her three chosen charities. What she will be unaware of is that Hillingdon Council has once again come in under budget during Carol's municipal year, this year by £2.5 million. So I will be recommending to the Cabinet that the amount raised to date is increased to £90,000. Carol, you have represented this borough with both dignity and compassion, combined with an unswerving sense of duty. Councillor Carol Melvin, you're a credit to the London Borough of Hillingdon. Together with Andrew, please accept our grateful thanks for a job well done.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wholeheartedly endorse everything that the leader has just said. In fact, I've served with Carol on mostly planning committees, I believe, and it was clear right from the very start that she's had this dedication to the local community and the borough as a whole. It's been a privilege having Carol as the Mayor presiding over these meetings, and from the opposition's point of view I can say we may have grumbled at times, but on the whole you've been extremely fair and courteous to us. So we thank you for your mayoralty, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Is that agreed?
Mr Mayor and members of the Council. Just before we move on to the other business of the evening, the Mayor has just asked me to say a few words for the benefit of particularly of new members present and of members of the public to explain the purpose of the traffic light system at the front and the protocol of standing to address the Mayor when speaking in Council meetings. So briefly, the majority of speeches in Council are either 5 or 3 minutes in length as dictated by the Constitution, and the traffic light system is used as a guide to members when speaking. When a member starts to speak, the green light is illuminated. When the member has 1 minute left, the amber light will come on. And when the member has exceeded their allotted speaking time, the red light comes on, at which point the Mayor will ask the member to speaking to conclude and resume the seat. The Mayor has asked me to remind all members that he would rather not have to cut them off in mid-flow, and therefore please tailor speeches accordingly. The Mayor has also asked me to remind members that it is accepted protocol and indeed stipulated in the Constitution under Council Rule 24.1 that all members will stand when speaking unless given dispensation not to do so, and speak and make all their remarks through the Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. We now go on to item 9, report of the Head of Democratic Services, Councillor Puddifoot. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm sure the leader will get his opportunity a little later on. But under item 9.1, I would like to move the appointment of Councillor Ray Puddifoot as leader of the Council.
Do I have a second there? Councillor Mills?
Mr Mayor, I'm very happy to second that proposal and reserve my right.
Any other speakers? No? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Appointment of the Cabinet. Councillor Puddifoot, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The next part of this report is to note the appointment of Councillor David Simmons as the Deputy Leader of the Council and the appointment of the following councillors as members of the Cabinet and their respective portfolios. David Simmons, Education and Children's Services. Richard Lewis, Central Services, Culture and Heritage. Jonathan Bianco, Finance, Property and Business Services. Douglas Mills, Community, Commerce and Regeneration. Keith Burrows, Planning, Transportation and Recycling. Philip Cawthorne, Social Services, Housing, Health and Wellbeing. Mr Mayor, those members of Cabinet covering the particular areas that are detailed in Appendix 7 to the Constitution will continue to deliver for the residents of this borough. I thank them both for their past service and for what I know they will deliver in the future. Mr Mayor, I'm currently reviewing the role and remit of Council Champions, and at this time I'm only proposing the appointment of 2, being Councillor Becky Hagger as Carers Champion and myself as Older Persons Champion. I've also informed the Head of Democratic Services that I have appointed Councillor Janet Gardner as Domestic Violence Advocate. I move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Simmons.
Mr Mayor, I formally second and reserve my right.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Councillor Puddifoot.
Mr Mayor, under 9.4 there are a number of proposed changes to the current Constitution. The first relates to minor changes in the Cabinet scheme of delegations as detailed in the report. The second relates to the proposed changes to the overview and scrutiny process in Hillingdon to make it more fit for purpose. As detailed in the report, there will be 3 policy overview committees, an external services select committee and an executive scrutiny committee. The use of task and finish review panels and the corporate parenting function is also formalised within the policy overview process. Council may have to revisit the policy and overview and scrutiny process when the government issues formal guidance, anticipated sometime before March 2019. In the meantime, I formally move recommendation 9.4 A, B and C.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simmons.
Mr Mayor, I formally second and reserve my right.
Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, we have a number of concerns regarding the changes to the overview and scrutiny functions, but the debate on those I feel can be taken at further meetings of this council. However, our main concern of this evening's, the main concern of ours this evening are around the abolition of the Corporate Parenting Board. As this is a matter concerning our responsibilities as corporate parents, and as such it's a matter above party politics, I would make an amendment to delete item B from the recommendations, so that all corporate parents, i.e. all 65 of us, have some sort of say and are consulted on the matter. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Curling. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Eddington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I second this amendment and reserve my right.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify for new members of the Council, an amendment has been moved and seconded. We are now discussing the amendment, which is to delete recommendation B from the 3 recommendations that Councillor Puddifoot has moved. So,
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Addressing the substance of the amendment, as the leader said in his introduction of this report, the purpose is to streamline the structure of our overview scrutiny policy function in Hillingdon, both in anticipation of new legislation that we are aware is making progress in our direction, and also in order to reflect the reduced size of the organisation in the wider financial context and the impact that has had. But I would draw all members' attention to 310 of the report of the Head of Democratic Services, which explains quite clearly, and all members have had sight of this before tonight, that the corporate parenting function will continue its existence in Hillingdon. It will be an ongoing and important part of the work of this authority, but it will find a more functional place within the structure of the organisation to ensure that the work that it does goes to the appropriate bodies in order that the children that we all have a corporate parenting responsibility for can benefit from streamlined decision making that gets their concerns heard as quickly as possible. Now, it seems to me, Mr. Mayor, that doing these things in the most efficient, most functionally effective way is incredibly important. It can be a very long time in a child's life to wait for the cycle of council meetings to get around to making a decision that makes a difference. Our job in this council is to put our residents first, which includes those younger residents and those particularly who are in the care of this authority. And in my view, a change to the structure to enable a more streamlined and efficient communication of those needs directly through the decision-making process will enable us to respond to the needs of those young people much more swiftly perhaps than has been the case in the past. And the structure that is outlined, which will have a number of members on it, appointed, of course, by the parent committee, does not in any way reduce the ability of elected members and others in the world of corporate parenting to contribute to the support that we provide to our looked after children. So the report, as outlined by the leader, in my view, is absolutely fit for purpose.
Any other speakers? Right. Okay. Okay. Councillor Puddifoot, please. Councillor Eddington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Corporate Parenting Board. The Corporate Parenting Board has been a very successful committee, in my opinion, and credit should be given to all of those who have served on the board and on the underlying panels. I should particularly mention the commitment of Councillor Riley, who established the current structure, which involves 12 councillors being directly involved. The proposal is to reduce this to just 3 councillors. That is less than 5% of the council membership. I believe that's a retrograde step. The council should be aware that we are talking about some of the most vulnerable children in the borough. At the moment, they attend, or a number of them attend and make presentations to the Corporate Parenting Board, to 7 councillors and to a number of officers. Perhaps even more relevant is the fact that each and every councillor is a corporate parent. This is an area in which we are all responsible, and in my opinion, the proposal will put that responsibility at risk, whatever Councillor Simmons has said. The fact is that we all need to be fully aware of our responsibilities, and the only way I suggest that can be done is by retaining the corporate parenting board. I so move.
Thank you.
Councillor Puddifoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think everything that I need to say has been said. This is designed to make the process more fit for purpose. I'm well aware of the desire of the opposition to have numerous committees with umpteen members on them. The object is to get the job done. It's not about talking shops, and it's certainly not about taking down corporate parenting. You've completely misjudged it. And I have to say at this point, and I might as well say it at the first meeting, we will maintain the same protocol as we did in the last administration, that any amendments from the opposition that are not properly tabled in advance of the meeting will be voted down without debate. So please note it for future reference. We're not decrying the passion that they have for corporate parenting. That is well known and well received. This amendment is not really going to improve corporate parenting. What we're endeavouring to do is just that. We've got to formalise it. It becomes part of the council process, not something on the side that is done as something additional to our function. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. Apologies. After a year, it takes a bit of time to adjust. Mr. Mayor, I mean, these papers were presented to us yesterday online and actually on paper this evening. There are quite serious implications that we need to look at here as far as the borough's looked after children are concerned. On this side of the chamber, we don't feel that we are sufficiently informed or convinced that this is the way forward to either vote in favour or against. So we will be abstaining, but that is on the basis that we don't really have enough information here to make decisions that could have serious implications to the borough's looked after children. Thank you.
So, Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am much saddened and concerned by the abolition of the Corporate Parenting Board. It is a board which, under the excellent chairmanship of Councillor Riley, has taken its responsibilities very seriously and listened to our looked after children, as we are all corporate parents. The board gave adequate time and voice so our young people, who we support as their corporate parents, were able to voice their concerns. By abolishing the board and attaching its function to a policy committee, which is already one with a very heavy load, you are in essence lessening the voices of our looked after children. Before you confirm its abolition here tonight, please ask our looked after children what they think about the board being abolished, as they are the ones that really know and will, I'm sure, ask you to think again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we move to vote, can I just explain one of the rules on speaking? The mover of the original motion and the mover of the amendment are supposed to be the last people that speak on any amendment or on any motion. In this case, the Mayor has decided to be lenient and allow Councillor Sweeting to speak, but he did ask if there were any other speakers before moving to Councillor Puddifoot and things. So that's just for future reference. In this occasion, the Mayor has agreed to be lenient, but in future, please make sure you get your hand up well in time. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're going back to the amendment. We go to the vote. Is that agreed? All those in favour? Okay, we go to a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an evening for explaining the procedures. So, for the benefit of the members of the public present and the benefit of new members especially, we are having a recorded vote, and rules on this are contained in the Constitution when 7 members so move and support such a motion. I take the vote individually by calling out the names of every councillor in turn and asking you if you are for the amendment as proposed by Councillor Curling, against the amendment or abstaining. So, in turn, Councillor Ahmad Walana. Councillor Allen. Councillor Arnold. Councillor Barnes. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Birra. Councillor Bliss. Councillor Bridges. Councillor Brightman. Councillor Burrows. Councillor Chamdal. Councillor Chamdal, not Chapman. Councillor Chamdal. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Tubadar. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Curling. Councillor Dennis. Councillor DeVille.
Against.
Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dott. Councillor Duncan. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edgington. Councillor Farley. Councillor Flynn. Councillor Fife. Councillor Gardner, I think has gone. Councillor Goddard. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hagger. Councillor Hensley. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Hurrengy. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Kaufman. Thank you. Councillor Lakmana. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Makwana. Councillor Markham. Councillor Mathers. Councillor Melvin.
Against.
Councillor D. Mills. Councillor R. Mills. Councillor Money. Councillor Morse. Councillor Nelson. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Oswell. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Prince. Councillor Puddifoot. Councillor Radia. Councillor Riley. Councillor Rodrigues. Councillor Sansapuri. Councillor Seaman Digby. Councillor Simmons. Councillor Singh. Councillor Stead. Councillor Sweeting. Councillor Tuckwell. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Against.
Mr. Mayor.
Against.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That amendment is lost by 44 votes to 20. We now move back to the original motion as moved by Councillor Puddifoot.
Thank you very much, Councillor Puddifoot. No. And
I don't think there's much more to say. I'm in a way pleased that the Labour group chose to move an amendment. It does show a clear difference between us. We are about efficient operating of this council, delivering for the residents in the best possible way. As I say, it's not about talking shops of whatever size, it's about actually doing the job. That was the difference between us last week, it remains a difference this week, and it will remain a difference for the next 4 years. Thank you.
go to the vote. All those in favour? And against? No. Motion carried. Thank you. We now go to item 10, committee allocations. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome. Thank you. I'd like to formally move agenda item number 10, the committee allocations and memberships for 2018-2019.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second that, and I reserve my right.
Any other speakers? No. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. We go on to item 11. Council membership of outside organisations. Councillor O'Brien, please.
Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move agenda item 11, the council membership of outside bodies. And although we are nearing the completion of the representations, we will be finalising within the next couple of weeks, both myself and the Labour Chief Whip, Councillor Duncan.
And Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, once we have finalised that, we'll let all members know what they've been appointed to.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second that, and I reserve my right.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Item 12, policy overview. Councillor Seaman Digby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am very pleased to present and recommend the annual report of the Policy Overview and Scrutiny Committees to Council tonight. In Hillingdon, these committees have a vital responsibility in monitoring Council and other public services in the Borough, influencing policy and engaging residents and local organisations in their work. This year, committees have again been very active, and I will quickly run through some of them for the benefit of this chamber and those watching online. The Corporate Services and Partnerships POC undertook 2 reviews, the findings of which are due to come to Cabinet soon. The first was the Employee Induction and Retention Review, following on from our investigation into recruitment at the Council, while the other review, close to my heart, is about homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying and what we as a Council can do to better empower young people in this borough. We heard from Stonewall about the terrifying statistics of the impact that bullying has on young people across the country and the borough, and were determined as a committee unanimously to do something about it. The Children, Young People and Learning POC has had recommendations from its review into the Council's current and future relationship with academies and free schools, followed by a review into supporting children with special educational needs and disability in early years. The Residents and Environmental Services POC also oversaw 2 reviews with a detailed look at the controls the Council and its partners have in relation to shisha bars, lounges and cafes, and a review of air quality in Hillingdon, close to people's hearts, certainly around the airport. The External Services Scrutiny Committee considered the effectiveness of community sentencing in the borough, and given their concerns over the accountability of the rehabilitation company running these schemes, have recommended their findings be forwarded to the Ministry of Justice, which is great. The committee also undertook single meeting reviews into the criminalisation of looked after children, Heathrow Village's GP services and the utility company provisions in the borough. Not least, the Social Services, Housing and Public Health POC undertook a review into loneliness and social isolation, very important in an increasingly ageing population in this borough, and undertook this review to improve the quality of life of old residents and what we as a borough can do to have an impact upon that. Sought to raise the profile of services, activities and events that are available in the borough to encourage more interaction amongst older people and between generations. Each of these reviews have engaged a wide range of partners and witnesses. I recommend and move this report to Council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seaman Digby. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the echoes of democracy ripple down the eons in history and back to us in this chamber. The scene, Mr Mayor, is ancient Rome and the Senate. It usually is when I talk to you. A young senator, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, devilishly handsome, possibly Cornish, sits on the wooden benches of the Senate and is about to make a speech. Nervously, he tugs at his toga. Across the courtyard comes one of the great officers of state. His title is Capute Cervico Democrates, head of democratic services. And his name is Barclayus Palus. Think about it. He comes across and sees the young senator, but to his horror he sees that he has before him a deck of cards. Why, says the great officer of the state, do you have the devil's placemats before you? And the young senator looks up and says, well, sir, the reason I have this deck of cards is because it reminds me of my civic responsibilities. I can't afford the CCA book on how to be a great councillor or book of constitution at all. You see, the aces remind me that it is ace to be the number one citizen in our borough, the mayor, and the office that you hold, Mr Mayor. There are 4 kings, and the kings remind me that 4 times we have a great king. The first king, the king amongst kings. You see, Mr Mayor, king in Latin is Regina or Regus, and first is Primus. Regina Primus, or RP as we call him, Mr Mayor. There are 4 queens, said the young senator, to remind me that the chief executive, the deputy chief executive, the chief whip and the immediate past mayor are all great and powerful women, surely queens amongst their sex. You must have, I apologise for the use of the word, Mr Mayor, but I am a very passionate orator. On went the young senator, explaining why the cards were relevant to his civic responsibility. And so, said the great officer, the grand officer before him, what about the 12 in the pack of cards? Well, said the young senator, the 12 is the item on the agenda that I speak to. And as I said, Mr Mayor, bounding back across the eons comes the aspect of democracy, and it is to item 12, and Councillor Scott Seaman Digby, that I have the pleasure of seconding his proposal.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Riley. Would you mind switching your microphone off, though? Do we have any other speakers? No? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 13, statement by the Leader of the Council. Councillor Puddifoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is not a night for politics, but it cannot have escaped people's attention that this time last week the residents of Hillingdon were voting in the local election. The people of Hillingdon, having read and listened to the policies being proposed by both the Conservative and Labour groups in this borough, have exercised their democratic right and chosen who they have confidence in to represent them for the next 4 years. For Hillingdon Conservatives, as I said in my election address to residents, local elections are not about right or left political dogma, they're about what is best for local people. Now recognised as one of the best councils in the country, Conservative Hillingdon Council is financially stable and well managed. No one of whatever political colour can deny that if they're honest. Mr. Mayor, it is said that a week or perhaps 2 is a long time in politics, and the 2 weeks running up to the election day on the 3rd of May saw a move from rhetoric to reality, with John McDonnell saying, "We don't just want to win in Hillingdon, we want to win with a decent majority, so we can implement the policies we need in this area. We are on the edge of a significant victory." He went on to say that taking Hillingdon on the 3rd of May would be a prequel to ousting Boris Johnson from his Uxbridge seat. Well, as I said, reality took over from rhetoric. Hillingdon Conservatives were returned with an increased majority. And John McDonnell, by his own logic, saw his own parliamentary seat under challenge. Mr. Mayor, I will not make any further comment on the result, not tonight anyway, but I will say this. Individuals seek political office either at local or national level because they want to make a difference. They may align themselves to a political party or they may stand as independent candidates. Obviously views and policies will differ and the parties and individuals will argue their case. That is part of the democratic process that we are fortunate to have in this country. In Hillingdon, the choice between the two parties was very clear. Strong political leadership, sound financial management and good business management, or a cooperative model. The choice was made by our residents, and that was also very clear. While strong leadership is very important on this side of the chamber, I'm fortunate to have a first-class deputy in David Simmons, a hugely competent cabinet and councillors who together make up the Conservative team in Hillingdon. I'm indeed fortunate to have a great team to captain. The achievements of any group are the result of combined efforts of each individual within that group at all levels of administration and activity. As I've said on numerous occasions, in Hillingdon we have a remarkable record of achievement in the provision of facilities, service and financial management that is the envy of many councils. As well as being able to continue to freeze council tax, have more green flags for our parks and open spaces than any other council in the UK, have free-to-use weekly refuse and recycling service, one of the largest schools building programmes in London, invest record amounts in road maintenance, and be the only council in the country to rebuild or refurbish every one of its libraries and kept them all open, we have built up record levels of cash balances to assist us in dealing with the challenges that still lay ahead for all local authorities. Mr. Mayor, as I approach my 19th year as leader of this council, I'm proud that Hillingdon is now one of the best run councils in the country. But I did not set out to be a leader. For me, it was always about making a difference. It's not about the role we play, it's about the services and facilities that we can deliver for our residents. It is about making that difference. Nearly all elected councillors are here because they want to make a difference, but it is the ability to work together as a team towards a common vision that is important. The ability to direct individual skills towards common objectives is the formula that allows a collection of individuals to produce outstanding results. It is this that makes the Conservative administration in Hillingdon so strong and so successful. I would also like to thank members of the Labour group for their contribution as the opposition party in Hillingdon. The Conservative team in Hillingdon have delivered a great deal for the people of this borough, and that has been achieved through strong political leadership and good financial management. Mr. Mayor, what has been achieved in Hillingdon is amazing, but this administration will not only be measured on its achievements to date, on its potential to do even better in the future. We will continue to deliver an ambitious programme for the people of Hillingdon, and in what I know will be difficult years ahead, we will continue to put Hillingdon residents first.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Just before you close the meeting, I'd just like to let all the members of the public know that once the Mayor has closed the meeting, if you'd like to proceed through those doors there, and you'll be shown down to Committee Room 6 where there is the civic reception. Unfortunately for members of the Council, I need to ask you to all remain behind while we elect Chairman and Vice Chairman of the committees. Thank you.